I used to think the worst thing about being married was having to share the remote control. Turns out, I was spectacularly wrong about that. The worst thing about being married is discovering that your wife has been treating your entire relationship like a dress rehearsal for her real life, the one that doesn't include you. My name is Rhett Vossin, and I'm a tech project manager for a software company in Dallas. 39 years old, decent salary, decent house in a decent neighborhood where people wave at each other and pretend to care about homeowner association meetings. I thought I had figured out the whole suburban dream thing. Joint bank accounts, matching coffee mugs, and a wife who looked good at company parties. Maris Ventor, she kept her maiden name for professional reasons, she said, works in pharmaceutical sales. 36, blonde, drives a leased BMW, and has the kind of smile that makes clients sign contracts before they realize what they're agreeing to. She's good at her job, which should have been my first warning sign. Anyone that's skilled at convincing people to do things they don't want to do probably practices at home. The signs were there for months, maybe longer. Late-night text messages she'd flip her phone over to hide. Business trips that seemed to involve a lot more spa treatments than actual business. New workout clothes that cost more than my monthly car payment. She'd started going to this upscale gym downtown, the kind of place where the monthly membership costs more than most people's rent. I need to stay in shape for work, she'd say, checking herself in the hallway mirror. Image matters in sales. I'd nod and go back to my laptop, working on project timelines and budget spreadsheets, being the boring husband who believed in things like mutual respect and shared Netflix passwords. What an idiot I was. The gym thing should have been obvious. Maris had never shown interest in fitness before. She used to complain about walking to the mailbox. Suddenly, she's spending 2 hours a day doing CrossFit and talking about her trainer like he's some kind of fitness messiah. Trent really knows how to push me, she'd say, toweling sweat from her forehead after another session. He's helping me reach my potential. Trent Orman. Even his name sounds like something you'd name a golden retriever. 41 years old, all muscles and fake tan, with the kind of confident swagger that comes from never having to think too hard about anything. The type of guy who uses protein powder as a personality substitute and thinks wearing tight shirts counts as professional attire. I met him once at a gym social event Maris dragged me to. He had this way of looking at her while she talked, like he was mentally undressing her right there next to the juice bar. And Maris? She ate it up, laughing at his jokes that weren't funny, touching his arm when she made a point, standing just a little too close when they talked about workout techniques. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This story really starts with Maris's sister. Sylvie Noren is everything Maris pretends to be. 34, sharp as a razor, and completely uninterested in playing games. She's a paralegal at a downtown law firm, drives a practical Honda, and has never owned a piece of clothing that required dry cleaning. The two sisters hadn't spoken in over a year before Sylvie showed up at our door on a rainy Tuesday evening in March. "I need to talk to you both," she said, standing on our porch with rain dripping from her dark hair. She looked at Maris like she was examining evidence at a crime scene. "It's important." Maris went pale. Actually pale, like someone had drained the color from her face with a straw. "Sylvie, this isn't a good time. I was just heading out to meet your trainer?" Sylvie's voice could have cut glass. "Yeah, I figured you might be." That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. Maris had mentioned going to a late workout session, something about Trent having a cancellation in his schedule. But the way Sylvie said it, with that particular tone that lawyers use when they're about to present evidence that destroys your case, made my stomach tighten. "Come inside," I said, stepping back from the door. "Both of you." We sat in the living room, Maris perched on the edge of the couch like she was ready to run, Sylvie in the armchair with her arms crossed, and me wondering why I felt like I was about to get some very bad news about my own life. "Rhett," Sylvie said, looking directly at me. How long has Maris been telling you she's working late on Wednesdays? About 3 months, I said automatically, then stopped. Why was she asking? Why? Because she's been telling people she's spending Wednesday evenings with me, sister bonding time, she calls it. Sylvie's smile was sharp enough to perform surgery. Except, I haven't seen her since Christmas, and that was only because Mom forced us both to show up. The room went quiet except for the sound of rain against the windows. Maris was staring at her hands like they held the secrets of the universe. I was staring at Maris, feeling something cold and unpleasant settling in my chest. There's probably an explanation, I said, but even I didn't believe it. Oh, there's an explanation, Sylvie said. I've been doing some checking. Turns out Maris has been very creative with her schedule lately. Late meetings that don't exist, business trips to cities where her company doesn't have clients, and a whole lot of time spent at that fancy gym with her trainer. Maris finally looked up. Sylvie, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Sylvie stood up, smoothing down her skirt. I understand that you've been lying to your husband and using me as your alibi. I understand that you've been sneaking around like a teenager, and I understand that you're too much of a coward to be honest about what you're doing. What exactly are you saying? I asked, though part of me already knew. Sylvie looked at me with something like pity. I'm saying your wife has been having an affair, Rhett, with her trainer, for months, and she's been dragging my name through it by using me as her cover story. The silence that followed was the kind that makes your ears ring. Maris was crying now, quiet tears that she probably thought made her look sympathetic. Sylvie was watching both of us like a scientist observing lab rats. And me? I was trying to process the fact that my entire marriage had apparently been a performance piece. Is it true? I asked Maris. She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. It's complicated. That's not an answer. Yes, she whispered, but it's not what you think. Trent and I, we have a connection, something real, something I've never had before. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories, something she'd never had before. I'd been married to this woman for 4 years, and she was sitting in our living room in front of her sister, telling me that what we had wasn't real, that I wasn't real, apparently. How long? I asked. Does it matter? It matters to me. She wiped her eyes, smearing her makeup. 6 months, maybe 7. 7 months. 7 months of lies, of fake business trips and imaginary sister visits and late-night text messages hidden under pillows. 7 months of me being the idiot husband who believed in joint dental insurance and anniversary dinners. I should go, Sylvie said, standing up. She looked at Maris with disgust. Clean up your own mess for once. Then she looked at me. Rhett, if you need anything, legal advice, someone to talk to, whatever, call me. You don't deserve this. After she left, Maris and I sat in the living room staring at each other. The rain kept falling outside, and I kept thinking about all the Wednesday evenings I'd spent alone, working on project reports and thinking my wife was bonding with her sister. All the business trips where she'd call me from hotel rooms, telling me she missed me while she was probably lying next to her trainer. What happens now? She asked. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I was seeing a stranger, someone who could lie to my face for 7 months, who could use her own sister as cover for an affair, who could sit in our living room and tell me our marriage wasn't real. Now, I said, you're going to find out what happens when you underestimate the boring husband. She blinked. What do you mean? I smiled, and it felt like the first genuine expression I'd made in months. You'll see. The thing about being a tech project manager is that you develop certain skills over the years. You learn how to track things, how to organize information, how to build comprehensive systems that account for every variable. You also learn how to spot when someone is trying to hide data from you. Maris went to stay at her friend Chloe's place that night, claiming she needed space to think. I told her to take all the space she needed. In fact, I encouraged it. Hard to gather evidence when the subject keeps looking over your shoulder. The first thing I did was change all the passwords on our joint accounts. Bank accounts, credit cards, streaming services, everything. If Maris wanted to finance her affair, she could do it with her own money. Turns out, when you're the primary account holder and you have all the security information memorized, it's remarkably easy to lock someone out of their own financial life. The second thing I did was start documenting everything. Screenshots of text messages, copies of credit card statements, records of her gym membership payments. I created a spreadsheet, because of course I did, tracking every lie she'd told me over the past 7 months. Business trip to Austin that never happened. March 15th. Late meeting with clients on a Sunday. February 8th. Sister dinner that Sylvie had already confirmed was fake. January 22nd. The pattern was impressive in its stupidity. Maris had been living a double life, but she'd been sloppy about it. Probably because she thought I was too boring and trusting to notice. She was half right. I was going through her laptop, she'd left it behind in her rush to get to Chloe's, when I found the real treasure. Email threads with Trent that went back 8 months, not 7. Photos they'd sent each other. Hotel reservations made with our joint credit card that I'd never seen the bills for because Maris handled the mail. But the best part was the group chat. Maris had a text thread with her friends Chloe and Tara where they'd been discussing her affair like it was a soap opera they were all starring in. Chloe, apparently, was the cheerleader of the group, encouraging Maris to follow her heart and not settle for boring. Tara was more cautious, but still supportive, offering to provide alibis and cover stories when needed. Reading through months of messages where 3 grown women giggled about deceiving me was educational. They had nicknames for everyone. I was the Spreadsheet, because of my job. Trent was Hot Trainer Guy, or HTG for short. They'd even planned out strategies for keeping me from getting suspicious. "Tell Spreadsheet you're having dinner with me tonight," Tara had written in February. "I'll back you up if he asks." "HTG wants to take me away for the weekend," Maris had replied. "Think I can sell it as a work conference?" "Totally," Chloe had responded. "You're so good at this." So good at this. My wife was so good at lying to me that her friends were congratulating her on it. I forwarded the entire conversation thread to myself, then deleted the forwarded messages from Maris's sent folder. Evidence secured, tracks covered. See? I can learn new skills too. My phone buzzed. Text from Maris. "Can we talk? I know you're hurt, but we can work through this." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Sure. Let's meet at that new Italian place downtown tomorrow at 7. The one on Elm Street." "Thank you," she replied immediately. "I love you, Rhett. We can fix this." I didn't respond to that. Instead, I opened my laptop and started researching Trent Orman. Social media profiles, business registration for his personal training company, public records. Amazing what you can find about someone when you know where to look. Trent was married. Had been for 12 years, to a woman named Jennifer who worked as a nurse and had no idea her husband was spending his afternoons with pharmaceutical sales representatives in downtown hotel rooms. They had 2 kids, a house in the suburbs, and a joint Facebook account where Jennifer posted pictures of family vacations and anniversary dinners. I felt sorry for Jennifer. She was about to have a very bad day. But first, I had a dinner to prepare for. The Italian place on Elm Street doesn't exist. There used to be one there, but it closed down 6 months ago. The building is empty now, just a "for lease" sign in the window, and some scattered trash in the parking lot. I figured Maris would realize the mistake and call me, but she didn't. She just showed up at 7 o'clock and sat in her BMW in an empty parking lot for 20 minutes, calling my phone over and over. I was parked across the street, watching her through binoculars I'd borrowed from my neighbor Paul. Paul thinks I'm taking up birdwatching as a hobby. He's not wrong. I'm just watching a different kind of bird. When Maris finally gave up and drove away, I followed her. Not close enough to be obvious, but close enough to see where she went. Straight to Trent's apartment complex. She had a key, let herself right in like she lived there. The affair was even more serious than I'd thought. I parked in the visitor section and waited. 43 minutes later, they came out together. Trent was wearing gym clothes and looked like he'd just rolled out of bed. Maris was still in the dress she'd worn to our fake dinner, but her hair was messed up and her lipstick was gone. They stood by her car talking for a few minutes. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language was clear enough. He was trying to calm her down. She was upset about something. Probably about her husband standing her up at a restaurant that didn't exist. Then Trent kissed her. Right there in the parking lot where anyone could see. Long, slow, theatrical kiss like they were auditioning for a romance movie. When they broke apart, Maris was smiling for the first time since I'd started watching. I took pictures. Lots of pictures. Then I drove home and uploaded them to my computer, adding them to the growing file I was building. Evidence folder was getting pretty thick. My phone rang around 10:30. Maris. "Where were you tonight?" she demanded. "I waited for over an hour." "Where was I when?" "At dinner. At the restaurant. We had plans." I paused, letting the silence stretch out. "What restaurant?" "The Italian place on Elm Street. You said 7 o'clock. "Maris," I said patiently, "there is no Italian restaurant on Elm Street. That place closed down months ago." Another pause, longer this time. What? "You sat in an empty parking lot for 20 minutes, then drove straight to Trent's apartment. Did you really think I wouldn't notice?" "You followed me?" "I didn't have to follow you. I already knew where you were going." I opened the folder of photos on my computer, scrolling through the images of her and Trent together. "Question is, did you tell Trent about our conversation last night? About Sylvie catching you in your lies? Rhett, please, can we just... Because if you did, he's probably wondering right now if his wife Jennifer knows about you two. 12 years of marriage, 2 kids, joint Facebook account. That's a lot to lose over a pharmaceutical sales rep with commitment issues." The line went quiet. I could practically hear her brain working, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much I was guessing. "You looked him up," she said finally. "I did a lot more than look him up. I know where he lives, where he works, where his kids go to school. I know his wife's schedule at the hospital, his mortgage payment, and the fact that he's been using the gym's business credit card to pay for hotel rooms. That's embezzlement, by the way. Felony charges if someone decided to press the issue." "You can't..." "I can't what? Can't protect myself? Can't gather evidence of my wife's affair? Can't make sure I have all the facts before I decide what to do next?" I leaned back in my desk chair, looking at the spreadsheet I'd created tracking all of her lies. "Maris, you've been underestimating me for months. Don't make that mistake again." She hung up on me. I smiled and went back to work. Tomorrow was going to be a busy day. Maris worked for Hartwell Pharmaceuticals, a mid-sized company that prided itself on family values and professional integrity. They had a strict policy about employee conduct, especially regarding relationships that might create conflicts of interest or damage the company's reputation. I knew this because I'd spent 3 hours reading their employee handbook online. Her boss was a man named Douglas Cass, 50-something, ambitious, and absolutely terrified of anything that might reflect poorly on his department. He'd been with Hartwell for 15 years and had his eye on a VP position that was opening up next quarter. A scandal involving one of his sales reps would not help his chances. I called his office at 8:30 Wednesday morning. "Mr. Cass, this is Rhett Vossin. I'm married to one of your sales representatives, Maris Ventor." "Oh yes, Maris. Excellent employee. How can I help you, Mr. Vossin?" "I'm calling to inform you of a situation that might affect the company. My wife has been having an affair with her personal trainer, and she's been using company resources to facilitate it. Hotel rooms charged to her expense account, fake business trips, that sort of thing. The silence on the other end was deafening. I'm sorry, what? I have documentation if you'd like to see it. Credit card statements, email correspondence, photographs. I thought you should know before it becomes a bigger problem. Mr. Vossin, these are very serious allegations. Yes, they are, which is why I'm bringing them to you directly rather than going to your competitors or the local media. I assume Hartwell would prefer to handle this internally. Another pause. Would you be able to come in this afternoon? With your documentation? Of course. How's 2 o'clock? I spent the morning putting together a presentation. PowerPoint slides, printed emails, bank statements highlighted in yellow. Everything organized and professional, like I was pitching a new software implementation instead of destroying my wife's career. Cass's office was on the 14th floor of a glass building downtown. He was waiting for me with someone from HR, a thin woman with nervous eyes who took notes on everything I said. I walked them through the timeline, showed them the evidence, explained how Maris had been charging personal expenses to her company account. This is comprehensive, Cass said, flipping through the printed emails. I'm a project manager. I'm good with details. Yes, I can see that. He looked at the HR representative, who was still scribbling notes. Ms. Patterson, what's our protocol here? We'll need to conduct an internal investigation, she said without looking up. Interview Ms. Ventor, review her expense reports, verify the allegations. How long will that take? I asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. I see. Well, I hope you can wrap it up before her big presentation next month. The one for the Henderson Group account? That's a significant client, isn't it? Cass went pale. How do you know about Henderson Group? Maris talks about work at home, or she used to anyway, before she got too busy with her trainer. I stood up, gathering my papers. I'm sure you'll handle this appropriately. Hartwell has a reputation to maintain. I was almost to the elevator when Cass caught up with me. Mr. Vossin, wait. The Henderson presentation. If this investigation drags on, if there's any uncertainty about Ms. Ventor's status with the company, you might need to find a replacement presenter, I finished. Yes, that occurred to me too. Unfortunate timing. Is there any way we could resolve this more quickly? I pressed the elevator button and waited. That's really up to you, Mr. Cass. I've provided the information. What you do with it is your decision. The elevator arrived, and I stepped inside. As the doors closed, I could see Cass standing in the hallway, looking like a man who just realized his promotion chances were evaporating. My phone rang before I reached the parking garage. Maris. What did you do? Good afternoon to you too, dear. Cass wants to see me in his office immediately. HR is involved. What did you do? I told them the truth. About your affair, about the hotel rooms you charged to your expense account, about the fake business trips. You know, all those creative bookkeeping techniques you've been using. Those weren't fake business trips. Really? Because I called the Marriott in Austin. The one where you supposedly spent 3 days in February meeting with clients. They have no record of any Hartwell Pharmaceuticals events that week. But they do have a record of you and Trent Orman sharing a room for 2 nights. Silence. The company credit card records were particularly interesting, I continued. Amazing how many business dinners you had at hotels with no restaurants. Very efficient, combining dining and lodging in the same bed. You're destroying my career. No, Maris, you destroyed your career. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. She hung up again. I was starting to think that was her favorite way to end conversations. I drove to Trent's gym next. Elite Fitness, the kind of place where the monthly membership costs more than most people's car payments, and everyone looks like they stepped out of a fitness magazine. The parking lot was full of luxury cars, and the front desk was staffed by a young woman who looked like she survived on protein shakes and positive thinking. I'm here to see Trent Orman, I told her. Do you have an appointment? Tell him it's about Maris Ventor. He'll want to see me. She made a phone call, spoke quietly for a moment, then hung up. He'll be right out. Trent appeared 5 minutes later, wearing shorts and a tank top that showed off his carefully cultivated muscles. Up close, he looked younger than 41, probably thanks to expensive skincare products and a complete lack of stress lines that come from actual responsibility. You're Maris's husband, he said, not a question. Guilty as charged. We need to talk. He glanced around the gym, probably noticing how many people were watching us. Not here. Let's go outside. We walked to the parking lot, stopping next to his BMW. Black, expensive, with custom rims that probably cost more than I made in a month. The kind of car that screams, I'm compensating for something. Look, man, he started. Whatever Maris told you, she didn't tell me anything. She didn't have to. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos I'd taken the night before. Him and Maris kissing in his apartment complex parking lot. Nice technique, by the way. Very romantic. His face went red. You were spying on us? I was gathering evidence. There's a difference. I put the phone away and looked at his car. Beautiful BMW. Must be expensive to maintain. Insurance alone probably costs a fortune. What's your point? My point is that you have a lot to lose. Nice car, nice apartment, successful business, happy marriage. All of that goes away when your wife finds out you've been sleeping with your clients. You don't know anything about my marriage. I know Jennifer works double shifts at Presbyterian Hospital to help pay for this lifestyle. I know she thinks you're faithful and hardworking and devoted to your family. I know she posts pictures on Facebook about what a great husband and father you are. Trent took a step back. You looked up my wife? I looked up everything. Your business license, your tax records, your gym's corporate account. Did you know it's illegal to use business funds for personal expenses? Those hotel rooms you've been paying for with the gym's credit card? That's embezzlement. You can't prove anything. I smiled and pulled a folded paper from my jacket pocket. Credit card statement from Elite Fitness corporate account. February through April. Highlighted charges include Marriott Hotel Austin, February 15th to 17th. Hilton Downtown Dallas, March 8th. Embassy Suites, Richardson, March 22nd. Should I continue? He stared at the paper like it was a venomous snake. How did you get that? Amazing what you can find when you know where to look. Your bookkeeper is very thorough, by the way. Excellent record keeping. What do you want? I want you to understand something very clearly. You picked the wrong married woman to mess around with. Maris might be impressed by your muscles and your fancy car, but I'm not. I'm the kind of person who reads the fine print, who keeps receipts, who remembers details. And right now, I have enough evidence to destroy both of your lives. A group of gym members walked past us, heading inside for their afternoon workouts. Trent waited until they were gone before speaking. This is harassment. No, this is a conversation between two adults about the consequences of their choices. Harassment would be if I called your wife and told her about your affair, or if I contacted the gym's board of directors about your embezzlement, or if I sent copies of these credit card statements to the IRS. You wouldn't. I looked at him for a long moment, then walked over to his BMW. The paint job was perfect, showroom quality, without a single scratch or ding. You know what I love about German engineering? The attention to detail. Every surface perfectly finished, every component precisely manufactured. I pulled my keys from my pocket and held them up so he could see them. It would be a shame if something happened to all that perfection. Don't even think about it. Think about what? I dragged the key along the side of his car, leaving a long, deep scratch in the paint. The sound was like fingernails on a chalkboard. Oops. Trent lunged toward me, but I was already walking away. You crazy? Careful, I called over my shoulder. There are security cameras everywhere. Wouldn't want to do something you'd regret. I got in my car and drove away, leaving him standing next to his damaged BMW in the parking lot of his own gym. In my rearview mirror, I could see him examining the scratch, probably calculating how much it would cost to repair. My phone buzzed with a text message. Maris. They suspended me pending investigation. Are you happy now? I texted back. Getting there. The thing about destroying someone's life is that it requires patience and attention to detail. You can't just blow everything up at once. That's messy and inefficient. You have to dismantle it piece by piece, like taking apart a complicated machine. First the professional life, then the social connections, then the personal relationships. By the time they realize what's happening, it's too late to stop it. Maris had built her identity around being successful, popular, and desired. She was the woman other women envied and men noticed. She drove the right car, wore the right clothes, belonged to the right social circles. Her entire sense of self was tied up in maintaining that image. So naturally, that's where I decided to attack next. Chloe Martinez was Maris's best friend and biggest enabler. 34, divorced, worked in marketing for a cosmetics company. She lived in a trendy apartment complex and spent most of her free time at wine bars and boutique shopping centers. She was also the one who'd been encouraging Maris to follow her heart and not settle for boring. I found her at her usual Thursday night spot, a wine bar called Vintage, that catered to professional women who wanted to feel sophisticated while drinking overpriced alcohol. She was sitting at the bar with Tara, probably discussing the latest developments in Maris's life. I took a seat 2 stools down and ordered a beer. The bartender, a young guy with carefully styled hair and a practiced smile, served it with a cocktail napkin that had the bar's logo printed on it. "Excuse me," I said to Chloe, "aren't you a friend of my wife's, Maris Venter?" She turned around, and I watched her face change as she recognized me. "Oh, Rhett, hi." "Hi there. Mind if I join you? I was hoping we could talk." Chloe glanced at Tara, who was suddenly very interested in her wine glass. Sure, I guess." I moved over to the stool next to her, bringing my beer with me. "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" "For being such a good friend to Maris. Really going above and beyond, you know? Providing alibis, covering for her when she was with Trent, encouraging her to pursue the affair. That's real friendship right there." The color drained from Chloe's face. Tara was now staring at her wine, like it held the secrets of the universe. "I don't know what you're talking about," Chloe said. "Sure you do." I pulled out my phone and opened the group chat screenshots I'd saved. Right here, February 18th, quote, "Tell Spreadsheet you're having dinner with me tonight. I'll back you up if he asks." That's you, isn't it? Helping my wife lie to me so she could spend the evening with her trainer? Chloe's hands were shaking now. "How did you—" "That's private." "Not anymore." I scrolled through more messages. "Oh, here's a good one. March 3rd. You're so good at this. Spreadsheet has no idea. Very supportive. Really shows what kind of friend you are. Rhett, please. And Tara, you weren't left out either." I turned to look at her. March 15th. "I'll say we went shopping together if he asks about the credit card charges. That was sweet of you, helping Maris cover up the hotel expenses." Tara finally looked up from her wine. "We were just trying to be good friends." By helping her cheat on her husband? Interesting definition of friendship. The bartender was pretending not to listen, but I could tell he was enjoying the drama. A few other patrons had started paying attention too. Nothing like a public confrontation to liven up a Thursday evening. "Look," Chloe said, lowering her voice. "What Maris did was wrong, but we were just—" "You were just what? Just helping her destroy her marriage? Just encouraging her to lie and cheat and steal? Just thinking it was funny that I was too stupid to notice?" "We never said you were stupid." I showed her another screenshot. March 22nd, Chloe. "Poor Spreadsheet. Working late again while his wife is out having fun. He's so clueless." April 5th. Tara. Does he really not suspect anything? How can someone be that oblivious? Both women were staring at my phone like it was a weapon pointed at them, which, in a way, it was. You want to know the funny thing? I continued. I wasn't oblivious. I was trusting. There's a difference. I trusted my wife to be honest with me, and I trusted her friends to have some basic sense of decency. My mistake. What do you want from us? Tara asked. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. For months, you two have been treating my marriage like entertainment, laughing about how easy it was to fool me, encouraging Maris to keep lying, helping her cover her tracks. Well, now you get to deal with the aftermath. I stood up and put a 20 on the bar to cover my beer. By the way, you might want to find a new place to drink. I've heard the owner of this place is very particular about the kind of clientele he wants. Something about maintaining a respectable atmosphere. Chloe looked confused. What are you talking about? I had an interesting conversation with Marcus, the owner, this afternoon. Showed him some photos of his establishment being used to plan adultery and deception. He was very concerned about his business's reputation. That was a lie, but they didn't know that. I'd never spoken to the owner, but the look of panic on their faces was worth the fabrication. You can't do this, Chloe said. I can do whatever I want. You helped destroy my marriage, so now I'm going to return the favor. Starting with your social lives. I walked toward the exit, then turned back. Oh, and ladies, you might want to check your phones. I sent those group chat screenshots to a few people who might find them interesting. Your coworkers, your families, some mutual friends. Amazing how different things look when you see them in context. I left them sitting at the bar, staring at their phones with expressions of growing horror. Outside, I got in my car and drove home, feeling better than I had in months. My phone started ringing before I reached my driveway. First Chloe, then Tara, then Maris. I let them all go to voicemail. I had more important things to do than listen to people complain about the consequences of their own choices. The next morning, I got a call from Paul, my neighbor who'd lent me the binoculars. Hey Rhett, you okay? I heard about you and Maris. Word travels fast. Small community. Everyone's talking about it. Can't believe she'd do something like that. Yeah, well, people surprise you. If you need anything, someone to talk to, help moving her stuff out, whatever, just let me know. Actually, there is something you could help me with. Name it. I'm having a little gathering tomorrow night. Nothing fancy, just some neighbors and friends. Could you help me spread the word? Sure thing. What's the occasion? I smiled, looking out my window at Maris's BMW parked in the driveway. She'd come by to pick up some clothes but hadn't had the courage to come inside and face me. I'm celebrating my independence, I said, and I want everyone to know about it. Saturday night arrived with perfect weather, clear skies, comfortable temperature, and a gentle breeze that carried the sound of voices across the neighborhood. I'd spent the day preparing for what I was calling my independence party, though the neighbors probably thought of it as the most entertaining drama their subdivision had seen in years. The guest list was carefully curated. Paul and his wife Jennifer from next door, the Hendersons from across the street, Mike and Susan from 2 houses down, the retired couple from the corner who knew everyone's business, plus a few co-workers, some mutual friends, and Sylvie, who'd agreed to help me with the evening's main event. I'd set up speakers in the backyard and created a playlist of upbeat music, ordered catering from a local restaurant, nothing too fancy, just good food and plenty of it, set up a bar with beer, wine, and mixed drinks. To any casual observer, it looked like a normal suburban party. The first guests arrived around 7. By 8:30, I had about 40 people in my backyard, all of them curious about why I was suddenly throwing parties and where my wife was. I'd been vague about the details when I invited them, just saying I had some news to share and wanted to celebrate with friends. At 9 o'clock, right on schedule, Maris showed up. She'd been staying at Chloe's apartment since her suspension from work, but she still had a key to the house. I'd been counting on her showing up to collect more of her belongings, and she didn't disappoint me. She walked around the side of the house and into the backyard like she owned the place, wearing a designer dress and heels that probably cost more than most people's weekly salary. The conversation died as soon as people saw her. 40 pairs of eyes turned to watch what would happen next. I'd positioned myself near the back door, drink in hand, like I was just another party guest enjoying the evening. "Rhett," she said, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet yard. "What is this?" "It's a party, Maris. You know, one of those social gatherings where people come together to celebrate something? Though I guess you've been too busy lately to remember what those look like." A few people chuckled nervously. Everyone was watching now, sensing drama but not sure what kind. "We need to talk," she said. "Privately." "I don't think so. See, I've discovered that privacy is overrated. All my best conversations lately have been public ones." I raised my voice so everyone could hear. "Besides, these are our friends and neighbors. They should know what's been going on." Maris looked around the yard, finally realizing she'd walked into a trap. "Rhett, don't do this." "Do what? Tell the truth? Share some news with our community?" I set down my drink and moved to the center of the patio, where everyone could see me clearly. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming tonight. I know you've been wondering why I invited you here and where my wife has been lately." "Rhett, stop," Maris said, but her voice was weak. "The answer is simple. Maris has been very busy for the past 7 months. Busy with her personal trainer, Trent Orman. Busy lying to me about business trips that didn't exist. Busy using her sister as an alibi while she had an affair." The silence was absolute. Even the music seemed quieter, 40 people staring at Maris, who was standing in the middle of my backyard looking like she wanted to disappear into the ground. "That's right, folks. My wife of 4 years has been cheating on me with a gym trainer who looks like he fell out of a fitness magazine. She's been charging hotel rooms to her company credit card, lying to her boss about client meetings, and using our joint bank account to finance her little adventure." "You're humiliating me," Maris whispered. "No, you humiliated yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it." I looked around at the crowd, making eye contact with as many people as possible. See, Maris thought she was smarter than me, thought she could lie and cheat and steal without consequences, thought I was too boring and trusting to figure it out. Paul stepped forward. "Rhett, maybe we should..." "Should what? Should pretend this didn't happen? Should let her keep lying to everyone?" I shook my head. "No, Paul. I'm done pretending. Done being the clueless husband who doesn't know his wife is sleeping around." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the speaker system. "In fact, let me share some of the evidence with you. These are text messages between Maris and her friends, talking about how easy it was to fool me." "Don't you dare," Maris said, but she made no move to stop me. I started reading from the group chat screenshots. "Poor Spreadsheet, working late again while his wife is out having fun. He's so clueless." I looked up at the crowd. "That's me, by the way, the Spreadsheet, because apparently having a stable job and paying the bills makes me boring." A few people were starting to look uncomfortable, but no one was leaving. This was better than cable television. "Here's another good one. Tell Spreadsheet you're having dinner with me tonight. I'll back you up if he asks." That was Chloe, helping Maris lie about where she was going. Great friend, right? "Rhett, please." Maris was crying now, but they weren't the manipulative tears she'd used before. These were tears of genuine humiliation and fear. "And here's my personal favorite. You're so good at this. Spreadsheet has no idea." Congratulating my wife on how well she could deceive me. Really heartwarming stuff. I put the phone away and looked directly at Maris. "But you know what the best part is? You weren't actually that good at it. You were sloppy and obvious and stupid. I figured it out months ago. I just wanted to see how far you'd go." That was another lie, but it sounded good, and it made her face go even paler. So tonight, I'm celebrating my freedom. Freedom from a lying, cheating wife who thought I was too stupid to notice her affair. Freedom from fake friends who helped her betray me. Freedom from pretending that my marriage was something it never actually was. The crowd was completely silent now. Even the music had stopped. Someone had turned off the speakers. Maris was standing in the middle of the patio, surrounded by people who were all staring at her with expressions ranging from shock to disgust to pity. "The house is mine," I continued. "The bank accounts are mine. The car payments are mine. Everything we built together over 4 years? That's mine now because you decided to throw it away for a gym trainer with fake muscles and a leased BMW. Where am I supposed to go?" she asked. "I don't know and I don't care. Maybe Trent can put you up." "Oh wait, he's married too, isn't he? With kids and a wife who works double shifts to pay for his lifestyle? Maybe she won't mind sharing." Maris looked around the yard desperately, as if someone might help her or defend her. But these were our neighbors and friends, people who'd known us as a couple for years. They'd trusted her, liked her, invited her to their own parties and gatherings. Now they were seeing who she really was, and the looks on their faces made it clear what they thought of her. "I made a mistake," she said finally. "No, you made a choice. Every lie you told, every hotel room you booked, every time you looked me in the eye and pretended to be faithful, those were all choices. And now you get to live with the consequences." Sylvie appeared at my side, carrying a large cardboard box. "These are the rest of your things," she said to Maris. "Clothes, jewelry, personal items. Everything's there." Maris stared at the box like it contained her entire life, which, in a way, it did. "You can't do this to me," she said. "I already did it." I picked up my drink and took a sip. "The party's over, Maris. Time for you to leave." She looked around the yard one more time, seeing 40 people who would never look at her the same way again. Then she picked up the box and walked toward the side gate, her heels clicking on the concrete patio. Just before she reached the gate, she turned back. "You'll regret this." I smiled. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. After she left, the party slowly came back to life. People started talking again, though the conversation was definitely focused on what they'd just witnessed. Some of them looked at me with new respect, others with concern, but no one seemed to think I'd gone too far. Paul came over and clapped me on the shoulder. "That was intense, man." "Yeah, well, sometimes you have to make a statement." "She really did all that stuff? The affair, the lying, the stealing? And more. I've got documentation if anyone wants to see it." "Damn, I never would have suspected. She always seemed so perfect?" "Yeah, that was the point. Image was everything to her. Now she doesn't have one anymore." The party went on until almost midnight, but I wasn't really paying attention to it anymore. I kept thinking about the look on Maris's face when she realized what was happening, when she understood that her entire life was falling apart in front of 40 witnesses. It felt good. Better than good. It felt like justice. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Monday morning brought rain and a phone call from Trent. I was in my home office, working on a project timeline, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Is this Rhett?" "Depends who's asking." "This is Trent. We need to talk." I leaned back in my desk chair and smiled. "Do we? I thought our conversation at the gym covered everything pretty thoroughly." "You've lost your mind. What you did to Maris on Saturday was insane. What I did was tell the truth, in public, with witnesses. Seems like a reasonable response to 7 months of lies and betrayal. You humiliated her in front of the entire neighborhood. She humiliated herself. I just made sure everyone could see it clearly." I opened my laptop and pulled up the folder of evidence I'd been building. "Besides, you're hardly in a position to complain about humiliation. How's your wife handling the news about your affair?" Silence on the other end of the line. "Oh, that's right. Jennifer doesn't know yet, does she? You haven't told her about the hotel rooms and the fake training sessions and the embezzlement charges that are probably coming your way." "What embezzlement charges?" "The ones related to you using your gym's corporate credit card to pay for hotel rooms with married clients. I'm sure the board of directors will be very interested in that information when I share it with them." "You can't prove anything." I have credit card statements, hotel receipts, and photographs of you and Maris together, plus testimony from witnesses who saw you two at various locations over the past several months. Trust me, I can prove plenty. Another long pause. What do you want? I want you to understand something very clearly. You picked the wrong marriage to interfere with. Maris might have been impressed by your muscles and your charm, but I'm not. I'm the kind of person who fights back when someone tries to destroy my life. This has gone far enough. No, it hasn't. Not even close. I stood up and walked to my window, looking out at the street where Maris's BMW used to be parked. You see, Trent, you made a fundamental error in judgment. You thought I was just another boring suburban husband who would quietly accept being cheated on. You thought wrong. What are you going to do? I'm going to finish what you and Maris started. You wanted to destroy my marriage? Congratulations, you succeeded. Now I'm going to return the favor. I hung up and went back to work. I had a busy day ahead of me. The first call was to Elite Fitness corporate headquarters. I spoke to someone in their legal department and explained the situation regarding Trent's misuse of company funds. They were very interested in the documentation I could provide and promised a thorough investigation. The second call was to Jennifer Orman at Presbyterian Hospital. I introduced myself as a concerned citizen who had information about her husband's activities. She agreed to meet me for coffee during her lunch break. Jennifer was exactly what I'd expected: tired, hardworking, devoted to her family. She worked 12-hour shifts as a nurse, came home to take care of 2 kids, and somehow still found time to post supportive messages about her husband on social media. She deserved better than Trent. I don't understand, she said after I'd shown her the evidence. Trent said he was building his client base, working longer hours to grow the business. He was working longer hours, just not the way he told you. She stared at the photographs of Trent and Maris together, her hands shaking slightly. How long has this been going on? 7 months, that I can prove. Maybe longer. And she's married too. Was married, past tense as of this weekend. Jennifer was quiet for a long time, processing what she'd learned. Finally, she looked up at me with eyes that were sad but determined. What happens now? That's up to you, but if I were in your position, I'd be talking to a lawyer about protecting my assets and my children's future. The house, the cars, the business, it's all joint property. Not if he's been using business funds for personal expenses. That's fraud, Jennifer. Criminal fraud. A good lawyer can use that to protect you in a divorce settlement. She nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me. I know this couldn't have been easy. Actually, it was easier than I expected. Turns out I have a talent for this kind of thing. That evening, I was grilling dinner on my back patio when I heard shouting from the street. I walked around to the front of the house and saw Trent's BMW parked in my driveway, with Trent himself standing on my front lawn yelling at my house. Come out here, you coward! Face me like a man! I opened my front door and stepped onto the porch. Keep it down, Trent. This is a family neighborhood. You ruined my life! No, you ruined your own life. I just made sure everyone knew about it. He was drunk, I realized, stumbling slightly, slurring his words, probably been drinking since his wife confronted him earlier. This was going to be entertaining. My wife left me, took the kids, filed for divorce. Smart woman. She deserves better than a cheating, embezzling husband who can't keep his hands off his clients. The gym fired me, banned me from the premises. 15 years of building that business, gone. Consequences, Trent. Actions have consequences. You should have thought about that before you decided to destroy my marriage. He took a step toward the porch, and I noticed several of my neighbors had come out to watch the show. Paul was standing in his driveway with his phone out, probably recording everything. The Hendersons were on their front porch, and I could see curtains moving in windows up and down the street. This isn't over, Trent said. Yes, it is. Your marriage is over, your career is over, your reputation is over. You have nothing left to threaten me with. I'll make you pay for this, I laughed. With what? You're unemployed, divorced, and probably going to be facing criminal charges for embezzlement. What exactly are you going to do to me? He stood there, swaying slightly, trying to think of a response. The alcohol and the stress and the complete collapse of his life had left him with nothing but empty threats and wounded pride. You know what the funny thing is? I continued. You actually did me a favor. I was married to a lying, cheating, selfish woman who thought I was boring and stupid. Now I'm free of her, I have my house back, and I've learned that I'm much better at psychological warfare than I ever imagined. Trent took another step forward, but Paul was already walking across the street toward us. Everything okay over here, Rhett? Everything's fine, Paul. Trent was just leaving. No, I wasn't. Yes, you were. I pulled out my phone. Because if you don't get in your car and drive away right now, I'm calling the police. Public intoxication, trespassing, harassment. That's probably enough to get you arrested. And I'm sure your wife's divorce lawyer would love to hear about you getting drunk and threatening people. Trent looked around at all the neighbors watching him, probably realizing how this looked. A drunk, unemployed man yelling at someone's house while children played in nearby yards. This isn't over, he said again, but his voice was weaker now. Yes, it is. Go home, Trent. Oh, wait, you don't have a home anymore, do you? Your wife kicked you out. Well, go wherever you're staying and try to figure out how to rebuild your life from nothing. He stood there for another moment, then stumbled back to his BMW. The engine started on the third try, and he drove away with the careful concentration of someone who knows they're too drunk to be driving, but doesn't have any other options. Paul walked over to me. That was intense. You okay? I'm perfect. Better than I've been in years. He seemed pretty angry. You think he'll cause more trouble? I looked down the street where Trent's taillights were disappearing around the corner. He's got bigger problems to worry about now. His wife, his kids, his career, his legal troubles. He doesn't have time to bother me anymore. What about Maris? Think she'll try something? I thought about that for a moment. Maris was staying with Chloe, but that arrangement wouldn't last long. Chloe was already getting tired of the drama, and Maris had no job, no money, and no prospects. Her parents had cut her off after Sylvie told them what happened. Her social circle had collapsed. She was essentially starting over from nothing at 36 years old. Maris is done, I said finally. She's got nothing left to fight with. I was wrong about that, but I wouldn't find out until the next morning. I woke up Tuesday to the sound of someone pounding on my front door. It was 6:30 in the morning, barely light outside, and whoever was out there was making enough noise to wake the entire neighborhood. I threw on a robe and went to the door, expecting to find Trent back for round 2. Instead, I found Maris standing on my porch with 2 large suitcases and tears streaming down her face. I have nowhere else to go, she said. Behind her, I could see Chloe's car in the driveway with the engine running. Chloe was in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. That's not my problem, I said. Please, Rhett. I know I messed up, but I'm still your wife. You can't just throw me out on the street. Actually, I can. We're getting divorced, remember? You made that choice when you decided to sleep with your trainer for 7 months. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. No, you made a series of deliberate choices over the course of 7 months. You chose to lie to me, you chose to cheat on me, you chose to steal from your company, and you chose to humiliate me in front of our friends and family. Those weren't mistakes, they were decisions. More neighbors were coming out to see what the commotion was about. Paul was on his porch in his pajamas, and I could see the Hendersons watching from their window. I'll change, Maris said. I'll be better. We can go to counseling, work things out. There's nothing to work out. You destroyed our marriage. It's over. You're just angry. Once you calm down, I am calm. This is me calm. If I were angry, I would have done much worse things to you than just tell people the truth about what you did. She looked around at all the neighbors watching us. probably realizing that this was just another public humiliation to add to her growing collection. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know and I don't care. Figure it out yourself. You're a grown woman with a college degree and years of sales experience, assuming you can find someone willing to hire you after your little embezzlement scandal. The company dropped the charges, only because you agreed to pay back everything you stole and resign quietly. That doesn't mean other employers won't find out about it. Chloe honked her horn, clearly tired of waiting. Maris looked back at the car, then at me, then at the suitcases at her feet. This is really it? You're really going to end our marriage like this? I didn't end our marriage. You did, 7 months ago, when you started sleeping with Trent. I'm just making it official. She picked up her suitcases and walked back to Chloe's car. As they drove away, I could see her crying in the passenger seat, probably finally understanding that her old life was completely over. I went back inside and made coffee, feeling more satisfied than I had in months. Justice, it turned out, tasted better than I'd expected. My phone rang an hour later. Sylvie. I heard about this morning, she said. Chloe called me, said Maris showed up at your door begging to come back. News travels fast. Small community. Everyone's talking about it. How do you feel? I thought about that for a moment. Free. For the first time in years, I feel completely free. Good. You deserve better than what she put you through. What's going to happen to her? I don't know, and honestly, I don't care. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and thinking about the past few weeks. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a boring suburban husband with a lying wife and a fake marriage. Now I was a single man with his own house, his own money, and a reputation as someone you didn't want to cross. It had been educational. I'd learned things about myself I never knew, that I was capable of strategic thinking under pressure, that I could be ruthless when necessary, that I had a talent for psychological warfare that I'd never had occasion to use before. Most importantly, I'd learned that I didn't have to accept being treated badly. I could fight back, and I could win. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. You think you've won, but this isn't over. I deleted the message without responding. Maris could send all the threats she wanted. She had no power left to hurt me with. Her career was over, her reputation was destroyed, her friends had abandoned her, and her family had disowned her. I, on the other hand, had emerged from the wreckage of my marriage, stronger and smarter than I'd ever been. I had my house, my job, my money, and my dignity intact. The final turnaround was complete. I finished my coffee, got dressed, and went to work. I had projects to manage, deadlines to meet, and a life to rebuild. But this time, I was building it on my own terms, without having to worry about lying wives or cheating trainers or fake friends. For the first time in years, the future looked bright. And if anyone else wanted to try to destroy my life, well, they'd learned what happened to people who underestimated the boring suburban husband with the spreadsheets and the attention to detail. They'd learned that some people fight back. And when they do, they fight to win.